Well, howdy, Stratolanders. It's your host, Bill Whittle, back with the Stratosphere Lounge, the Proof of Life edition. I don't know if it's been 3 weeks in a row that I've been away or 4, but it's been a long time. It is good to be back. Good to see everybody. Going to have to be a little brief again tonight, just under a tremendous deadline, which I'll talk to you a little bit about. But 5 weeks, my God, yeah. I know it's been embarrassing. I hope, as in the case of the Apollo 11 series, that when this stuff does get on the air, which will happen, hopefully we'll start to see the first episodes in towards the end of October. I hope that you guys can see that the time was worth it. So just a little bit about that for those of you who, I didn't get into a whole lot of detail earlier. I had been away and a lot of it hadn't firmed up, but I did get offered another 7-part series from the Esoteric Radio Theater guys over at Daily Wire. And they asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, well, I got 2 ideas. One of them is called Hell on Earth, which would be a show about, the worst places in human history, like Battle of Cannae and, that kind of thing. And since when we started, there was really in the middle of all the statues getting pulled down, I said, or I think also we could maybe do America's Forgotten Heroes, and I like that, and I like the fact that I had 5 or 6 candidates right off the bat. So in the intervening weeks since we've spoken last, I have been doing an awful lot of writing, an awful lot of writing. That's all I've been doing for 4 weeks now. People have mentioned in the comment section here live that Daily Wire is moving to Nashville, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the show order was episode 1 would be John Paul Jones. Episode 2 would be Frank Luke. Episode 3 is Booker T. Washington. Episode 4 is Ernest Evans. 5 is Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. 6 is Jimmy Doolittle. And 7 is TBD. I know what it is, but I have some notifications to make. So some of them I know are... I knew, quite a bit about Ernest Evans, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, real familiar with those stories. I was Norman Borlaug was actually, honest to God, was on the list. And then I talked with the producer over there, and he said, I'm not entirely sure how we're going to cover an hour of growing wheat. And I said, that is in fact an actual problem. So we may get that downstream. But anyway, it is definitely an upper routine. So I started having to really dig into the other people. I knew enough about them to want to have them on the list, but honestly, every one of these has required a really, really deep dive, really deep. And to give you an idea of just how much research I did on them. I have originally had a 6,000 word limit, but that would be a 40-minute show. We got that up to under 9,000 words is less than an hour, just a little less than an hour. So I had to get the final scripts to under 9,000 words, and the first draft of John Paul Jones was 25,632 words. So 3 full scripts and cutting 2/3 of a script it's hard work. It's a really good cut, and everything is still there. I was trying to cut, and I was taking stuff out, and I finally realized I'm just not going to get there this way. So I ended up going through the script and highlighting what I thought had to be there, absolutely had to be there. And I copied that over to another file. And in the case of John Paul Jones, when I went really strictly, like what a bare bones minimum, and I moved into the other files, it was right around 9,000 words. And I had a lot of stuff to stitch together. But once I had the stuff that had to be there, then all of the pages of exposition between those were things that I could just look at and kind of boil down to a paragraph or two. I am hoping that someday we might be able to publish a book of these and the Apollo stuff and the Cold War stuff. It's not something that's on the cards right now, but the longer version of these are amazing. So the John Paul Jones story is astonishing. It's just astonishing. And the more you get into it, the more astonishing it gets. You could do an hour on what happened after he died. The story of what happened to John Paul Jones after John Paul Jones died, just that alone is an hour, if you really wanted to. But it's a great story, and I didn't have any real appreciation for the guy. I mean, really, when you get right down to it, John Paul Jones had basically two battles. He was commanding USS Ranger, and he captured HMS Drake in just in an Irish port, and then his big battle with the Bonhomme Richard against HMS Serapis. That's really it. Two major battles, and I didn't realize how important two battles could be until I read what everybody else was doing, and that's when the John Paul Jones script just gelled. This was not the United States Navy at the time; it was the Continental Navy, and when the war broke out, they had a couple of converted merchantmen. That's what Bonhomme Richard was. It was originally a merchant East Indiaman called the Duc de Duras, and you could mount cannon on that merchantman. And Ben Franklin managed to wrangle it for John Paul Jones, so he went into that battle against a top-of-the-line HMS Serapis with a slow, fat, undergunned merchantman. But when the war was declared, Congress decided that they were going to build 13 frigates. America knew how to build ships. They were going to build 13 frigates, one in each colony. And I looked at, I thought, well, okay. I know that he didn't get command any of these, even though he was promised it. I think he was dead last on the seniority list. I want to say he was either 18th or 26th. I cannot remember now, but he was last on the seniority list. All of the big frigates and the new frigates went to political appointees, and 4 of them never made it to the water. They were burned because the British were advancing. They just burned them on the ways there. But when you look at what happened to the other 9, with one exception, the job of what we did was we supplied ships for His Majesty's Royal Navy. 5 or 6 of these things were these American warships, powerful ships. John Paul Jones could have done amazing things with any one of them, and they gave them to these idiots who had them just simply go out and either get sunk or captured, mostly captured. One of them, I think it was Hancock. I think it was USS Hancock. Was captured by the British after no fight at all. And if it was Hancock, they renamed it, I want to say HMS Iris. But the British crews who took over this American frigate that got captured after doing absolutely nothing said it was the finest sailing frigate in the world. And I believe that's the case. So John Paul Jones's story is very, very sad because of the frustration he must have just gone through. Well, I know he went through it, just killed him. But he was an amazing story. And then I'd heard about Frank Luke growing up and his big stand. You know, he was the balloon buster, and he was the second highest scoring American ace in World War I. And I heard the story about how he took an engine in the bullet or whatever the case may be, and then he would, he had to land, and then he got out and drew his .45. He said he'd never be taken alive, and German troops are coming, and tung, 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 fires at him, and they end up gunning him down, and when they get there, there's like 7 Germans lying dead on the ground next to him, that kind of thing. That didn't happen that way. But what did happen, I think, is much more impressive than that. Much more. And the misconceptions that I had about Luke were that he was this, arrogant loner. He was, antisocial, mean-spirited, cruel kind of guy, and so on. Because there's no pictures of him smiling. And then I looked up what was going on when those pictures that were taken of him were taken. And if you had those pictures taken then, you wouldn't be smiling either. There's a picture of him leaning against the wing of his Spad 13. He's got his arms crossed, and he looks like he's incredibly put out, like he just walked out to his plane. And they said, "Can we just get a picture for the folks back home?" And it's like, come on, get this over with. But that's not. He wasn't at the base, and that was not a publicity picture. And the more I learned about Frank Luke, the better I liked him. And there were some misconceptions that I should have known better about. One of them was that Frank Luke was down in the mud busting balloons while Eddie Rickenbacker was up high in the sky on the other side of the front, shooting down Germans and, as an ace. And I didn't have a whole lot of respect really for the balloon busting aspect. I knew they were heavily defended and so on. Turns out Rickenbacker and Luke were based at the same field, and they knew each other well, as Rickenbacker was one of the few people that could stand to talk to Luke. And I got really deep into his psychology and really looked at some of the pictures of him, and what he did and how he did it was crystal clear to me. But Luke scored 18 aircraft victories in, technically it was about, I want to say 17, 18 days. May have been 12 days. He did virtually all of them in 5 days. He shot down. He was not just an ace in a day. Frank Luke got 5 kills in 10 minutes. He was an ace in 10 minutes. And Rickenbacker and all of the other people who ever saw him fly said the best pilot they ever saw, the best shot that they ever saw. And all of them, experienced aces who'd flown against Rickenbacker, or at least known people who had, said that none of them had the slightest bit of doubt that if you put Frank Luke in a Spad 13 and you gave Rickenbacker his triplane or his Albatross, his choice, Luke would make short work out of him. And his flying, with the flying he did, was just absolutely amazing. It's just unbelievable. And all of the nonsense on the ground. There were orders for his arrest if he had returned to base. He'd been that disrespectful and disobedient and stuff. But anyway, I really liked him, and I felt like the ending of that one I handled really well too. Those final moments are just unbelievable, really. I think what he did in real life is much, much more impressive than what we were told that he did. And then just several hours ago, I finished Booker T. Washington. I've got the other 4. It's not like I have to start it. They're all in various stages of completion. But I finished Booker T. Washington. Frank Luke was 20,000 words. Booker was 15,000 words. With a 9,000 word limit, at least I'm going in the right direction. 25, 20, 15. Somebody asked, will I have video this time? Yes, I will. They are constructing a special set for me that we are going to use for history shows, and I know exactly where that set is. It's the same room where I shot the Apollo 11 thing, and we will shoot it before they go to Nashville. But after that, anybody's guess. The video, Dave said, thought the video was too expensive. It is expensive. It's a lot more expensive than the audio only that we did with the Cold War. But it also did much better than than the Cold War did, and had a much bigger effect. So they decided that it was worth doing. So we even had a discussion. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, but when we were talking about the fact that they wanted to build a set, a history set, I said to them, guys, the work in the Cold War series was the scripts. I mean, the 13 scripts, they were each 13,000 words long, and there were 13 of them. And I still rushed the ending on that. I said, since those scripts are already written, and if we have a set, maybe we could think about releasing the Cold War as video. I mean, the hard part is I could record them. I could record 13 episodes in 2 days, no trouble. 3 anyway. So perhaps they will. Perhaps they'll be able to do that, and then we can add the picture to it and really get it to where it wants to be. I think. I don't know. The John Paul Jones and Frank Luke and Booker T. Washington are some of the best writing I've ever done, I think, and Booker T. Washington is beyond imagining. We're descended from heroes. This is a nation of astonishing heroes, and Booker's story is a little different because it's all internal. He's not, exploding hydrogen balloons or blasting wooden ships to splinters out in the high seas. And thank you, all of you, for the kind compliments about the Cold War series and stuff. But I thought the Apollo series was just so much better, and the editing work that the crew did that I had nothing to do with astonished me and just blew me away. Now, Booker's story is unbelievable, and I'm just trying to give you a taste of all of these things, just so you have some idea of where I've been for this whole time. So, all of the details of his story are unbelievable. His biography, Up From Slavery, should be required reading. If every single person in this country read Up From Slavery in the 4th grade, our problems would be over, and the racial problems would be the first things to go. So I talk an awful lot about his background and his, time in slavery and what he had to do to get an education at the Hampton Institute and all the things he did at Tuskegee and all of this stuff. But then I knew that the thrust of what I wanted to do with Booker T. Washington was the debate between Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, and it was never actually a debate. It's not like they were on stage together. But Du Bois was considerably younger than Washington. And just to give you an idea of how nasty history is and pernicious it is and how slanted it is, I looked at the Wikipedia entry for Booker T. Washington, and it was a good entry. It was fair and so on. And then I looked at the one for W.E.B. Du Bois. And it said he opposed Booker T. Washington because he opposed the Atlanta Compromise, which was in capital letters, the Atlanta Compromise. And the Atlanta Compromise that Booker T. Washington apparently brokered, according to the Du Bois page, said that he would be willing to accept prejudice, disenfranchising, all of these things in exchange for essentially being left alone and being able to do this thing. And that's a fairly damning thing to say. So let me read this Atlanta Compromise document that Booker T. Washington drew up and put his name to. And then you find out in the next paragraph, the Atlanta Compromise was never written down. Really? No, it was never written down. So I start digging around. Where did the term Atlanta Compromise come from? Turns out that that the term was coined by W.E.B. Du Bois, and that he was referring to a speech that Booker T. Washington gave at a convention, at an exposition in Atlanta. And unfortunately for Wikipedia and W.E.B. Du Bois and generations of social justice warriors, the speech that he gave was written down. And And to say that this was a speech about surrender, it's just infuriating. What he was talking about was cooperation. He was talking about cooperating with the whites in the South. He was talking about being about making the black community something that they would miss if they were gone. He started when they started to build the big building at Tuskegee. They didn't have any bricks, and there were no bricks in the county. There was no way to manufacture them. So he started making bricks, and he went through 4 kilns, and after he'd spent the money on the 3rd kiln, which had failed, fallen down, fell into the swamp apparently. But the 4th kiln. But he didn't have money for the 4th kiln, so he went to Montgomery. He pawned his watch for $15, came back, built the 4th kiln. They did a run of 12,000 bricks. They started learning how to do it, and he said that when he wrote his biography, that they had done something like, I don't remember what the number was, hundreds of thousands of top quality bricks every year, and that they were the bricks. The quality was so good that people came from all over the South to buy them. And I said, this is how you cure racism. You cure racism by having to go and buy the best bricks you can find that are manufactured by black guys, and then you put those bricks into the house that you build for yourself. It's tough to keep that up, If you find yourself saying, I need to build the house with the best quality materials I can, and the only place to find them is at the Tuskegee Institute. It was more than 100,000. It was a lot. It was a lot of bricks. Anyway, and so this whole thing about about him agreeing to the Atlanta Compromise there was no Atlanta Compromise. He didn't sit down with white leaders and discuss these terms and say, I'll trade you our civil rights for economic rights. There was no Atlanta Compromise. It was a term that Du Bois came up with to talk about the tone that Washington struck in his speech, which was insufficiently outraged. And the thing that makes me nuts, I'm still coming down off of it. But Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass, both of them Republicans, both of them born into slavery, both of them with the strength of willpower to teach themselves how to read, both of them said that the key to the future of both black and white Americans was that these groups be integrated. And Washington lived in the South. He made some of the biggest supporters of Tuskegee were the white former plantation owners in the area surrounding Tuskegee, and he offered them a vision of the future that brought the house down. And then, but we didn't go that road. We went the road of a black intellectual who grew up in Massachusetts, never experienced slavery, didn't experience any real prejudice until he went to the South for college, and he went to Berlin and studied there, learned out about all the precepts of socialism. Came back and became a socialist. So instead of listening to the 2 men that grew up as American slaves and what they thought was the answer, we end up listening to a Harvard PhD who studied socialism in Berlin, and never spent a day on a plantation in his life. If slavery is the greatest tragedy in American history, then our decision to follow the path that W.E.B. Du Bois laid out instead of the one that Booker T. Washington laid out was the second biggest tragedy. And, my God, it's just how different the world would be. I cannot recommend Up From Slavery highly enough. I realized when I was making the notes for that episode that it would have just been easier and cheaper and faster for me to highlight the stuff that I wasn't going to use. It's like every single page has just got some unbelievable life lesson or something, just mind-boggling. The guy's willpower and his sense of humility and gratitude and all of it. Just give you a quick little story and then I'll move on. Oh, hey, Julius, good to see you. Happy congratulations, and to you and your lovely wife. I saw some of the pictures. Still haven't seen the wedding shots, but You guys sure looked happy, and awful sorry I couldn't be there, but no one was flying, so couldn't get out of LAX. Anyway, just to give you an idea of Booker T. Washington, just one tiny little thing. He was working in a coal mine, and there was an opportunity to work for this white woman, Yankee, married to a Union general who had moved to West Virginia immediately after the Civil War and was part of, the occupation, basically. And this woman was so severe and so strict that a number of black people had applied for the job, gotten it, and then just simply quit. And Booker T. Washington decided to go in there and do it, and he did, as he always did, an extremely thorough job, swept the place to her satisfaction. He said very quickly got to know her, and she started to become a friend. She helped him with his education. She got him to realize the power of cleanliness and order and so on. And so when Booker T. Washington basically hitchhikes to Hampton Institute, he's heard that there's a school for black students. He doesn't have any money, and he has no idea whether he's going to get in or not. He presents himself to the Hampton Institute, and he's all shabby because he's walked and slept underneath boardwalks and all the rest of this stuff. And he applies at Hampton, and the woman there, the black woman in admissions, sees this shabby-looking guy, and all these other students are there, and they're all dressed up, black students from around the South, and they're just being admitted as fast as they can write their names down. And she says, the room over there needs sweeping. Go do that, and then we'll talk later. And he said, I was filled with joy when I heard that, because he said, I learned how to sweep a room and clean a room working for this other woman. And he swept the place 4 times, moved all the furniture, went over everything with a dust rag 4 times. Absolutely made that room immaculate. And when the admissions woman came in, she walked around literally with a white glove. It's almost like an inspection in the Marine Corps or something. And she couldn't find a speck of dirt. And she said, all right, you've been accepted. And I think the point of that was, did this guy know that by taking this demeaning job for this nasty Yankee woman, sweeping floors and being a domestic servant for a woman who's notoriously insulting and mean and hard to get along with, did he know that a few years later, the experiences that he'd learned cleaning that woman's house would be what got him into Hampton Institute? And if he hadn't done those things, he would have undoubtedly been rejected. He had no idea. He had not the slightest idea that was the case. It's just that Booker T. Washington, never let an opportunity go past him, ever. And he was more willing to do hard work than anybody I've ever heard of in my life. And he's an astonishing guy. So anyway, we're working on Ernest Evans now, and we're also moving along Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain and Jimmy Doolittle. So, and I have to get these scripts done in the next several days, so I'm just crazy busy. I'll take a few questions just to do them, but it's going to have to be an hour show or maybe even less because I am on a brutal deadline. But I hope, just given the taste of some of these scripts that I've been working on, I hope you can forgive me for these absences, and I hope when you see the final product of what we'll be doing, that they'll have hopefully they'll seem worth it. So Daily Wire is moving to Nashville. I don't blame them one little bit. This state is going under exactly the same way that the Titanic did. Because I'm a nerd about these things, you can find it easily online. It's an animation of the Titanic sinking in real time. It took a little over 2 hours for that ship to go down. And the first hour, you can't really tell anything is wrong. At the end of the first hour, you can see it's a little low in the bow. And then the next half hour, yeah. My point is, it took 2 hours and 15 minutes to sync, and all of the action happens in the final 7 or 8 minutes. I mean, the rest of it is just really boring. And I get that feeling about California now. I get that wheels coming off sense that, that it's just... used to be that you could make a comparison on what it cost to rent a U-Haul to get out of here versus what it cost to rent a U-Haul to come here. But I don't know that you can rent a U-Haul anymore for a love of money. I just don't know if they're available. Everybody is leaving this state, and it's good. Somebody mentioned Joe Rogan is moving to Texas. Daily Wire considered Texas very carefully, and I was not the slightest party to their decision. I wasn't surprised about it, but it was still nevertheless a pretty big shock. I mean, who knows? We'll see. I know that regardless of who wins the election in November, the state is going to continue to deteriorate. They're already talking about raising the state income tax from 13% to 17 or 18% because everybody's leaving the states because the taxes are too high. So we have to raise taxes, obviously. Slowly at first, and then very quickly. As Ghost says, yeah, that's exactly right. So I don't know. I don't know. It's obviously something that Natasha and I have discussed, and it was not something I wanted to discuss. I'm very, very happy at my home now, and I really love it. And I love California. It's just beautiful, but it's becomes more and more unbearable to live here every day. And when you think about, I got a notice in the mail today. I don't know if Natasha's watching this or not. She usually does, but I think she may have a meditation thing tonight. I got a message in the mail saying that a indoor gun range, which we used to go to, is open till 11 or 12 at night. They just sent out a letter saying that they had to close, that they've been closed for 5 or 6 months now, and that's as far as they could go. So the range is closing, and thanks for all the fish. They wrote a letter to everybody who was a member and thanked them for their support. And I thought, okay, that's just another. Every day that goes by, these companies that had some reserves, they just keep falling off the cliff. And I don't know. I just don't know. People are saying that Biden is ahead in the polls, and it feels to me, living out here, it feels to me like Trump's going to win 50 states. That's what it feels like to me. I don't know if that doesn't happen, if it's close, or if he loses, then it's time to start thinking seriously about, okay, time to circle the wagons now, because if it's not a huge win, I don't know how else. Well, we'll see. I feel like it's going to be. I feel like it's going to be a 50-state win. I really do, and it had better be enough of a win to surpass their margin of cheating, and not only that, it has to be enough to not only surpass their margin of cheating, it has to be a big enough win to surpass the argument they're going to make that he cheated and that he's not really the president, and so on and so on and so on. We'll see. If Minneapolis, if the county that Minneapolis is in goes to Biden, then what can you say? What can you say? I just cannot imagine how that would happen. I can't imagine it. The people who are out in the streets are such a small percentage of the population, and they don't vote anyway. I just can't imagine how he would win. But I don't know. they're constantly telling us that it's Biden's to lose, and it's, but please, please, this is like listening to Michael Jackson tell us that he's never had any plastic surgery, which he did in that interview, and that those 3 children of his are his biological children. The white, blue-eyed kids are his biological children. It's like, comes a point when somebody's lying to your face so boldly, you really just want to punch him, here we go. Tom Bombadil says, we had a protest in our county tonight. About 14 people were allowed to block the busiest intersection in the entire county. Right. Why does that happen? Well, I don't know. I mean, I do know. The problem is that every day that goes by, these protesters think that they become more emboldened. They think that they start to think that they're badasses now. And there's only one way they're going to be cured of that. And every time you see one of them actually confronted, one of them gets punched or one of them gets arrested, and they break down sobbing and crying and, and calling mom and, all of this stuff. It's just sickening. And I realized, by the way, that both Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass, that their personal feelings towards the people that had owned them as property were far, far, far more compassionate than anything that I've heard or seen 150 years later from people who are 7 generations away from slavery. Isn't that something? That the actual slaves, had a moral core that allowed them to forgive these people in most cases, and that as Washington points out in Up From Slavery, he said he couldn't count the number of times that after the Civil War was over, the whites didn't know what to do because they had no skills. They didn't know how to do anything. Slaves did everything, and so he said many, many times the former slaves of these white masters would take care of them financially, help them stay alive, send them food, for that kind of thing. And when you hear that, you just realize how toxic things have gotten, how low they've gotten, and how external they've gotten. That's really it, how external they've gotten. If you listen to the words of an actual slave who spent his entire life in the Deep South, the thing that is the most shocking by far about Up From Slavery is not the horrible conditions that he had to go through or the hardships that he endured. It is his attitude towards white Southerners and the grace and the humility that he treated them with, and the response that he got from his former slave masters. I just don't know what to say. I really don't. I don't know what to say. He's looking for a place to put Tuskegee. He's staying in a shanty on a Black Methodist church shack out back. And the shanty is so dilapidated that when class is on, one of the students from the class has to come up and hold an umbrella over Washington so that his book doesn't get soaked. And he hears about a plantation for sale for $500, completely dilapidated, abandoned plantation, and he goes to the owner of this plantation. Is a former slaveholder. And Washington says, we'd like to buy this for the school, but we don't have the $500, and so this slaveholder naturally threatens to blow his head off and calls him the N-word and kicks him in the butt and whips him on the way out. No, wait a minute, that's not what happened. What actually happened was that the white plantation owner said, okay, if you can get me $250 now, I'll spot you the other $250 if you can pay it up by the end of the year. To somebody he's never seen before in his life. That can't get out, And this is what I realized. It's like, realize that Booker T. Washington was thrown under the bus because he was insufficiently outraged because he understood that if there was going to be a future for white and black people in this country, it would have to be a future based on mutual respect and friendship, and that has to be destroyed. And so it was. It has been. And I think that this Booker script is going to get some attention because I don't even know where to begin. Well, I guess I do. I know where to begin. I began 15,000 words ago. But in any event, he's not telling you how... he's not making educated people. He's not even... He's going further than educating students. He's going further than turning them into citizens. He's turning them into men and women. He's turning them into people. He's just making them into people by doing the basics, the layup drills and the passing drills. Everybody else is out there doing the slam dunks off of trampolines, and Booker T. Washington is over there saying, no, we're going to do layups and we're going to do passing drills until it is second nature, and we are not going to go for the flash. We're going to go for the team win, and we're going to win solidly, and everybody on the team is going to win together. And it's like, it would have been such a different world, and it still could be yet. We'll see. Anyway, let me take just a couple questions, about 15 minutes. It'll be an hour for the show, and that's all the time I have tonight. I'm going to have to take a quick nap and then get back and write another 4 or 5 hours. So, excuse me. Terry and Jane says he just, I'm assuming it's a he or she just read Up From Slavery last month, and it is a must read. It is. It truly is. Let's see here for comments. Okay. I could only do a few of these, and again, my apologies. Dave, your question is awesome, but it's so, and I don't mind doing inside baseball questions, but that's so inside that I'm just going to let that one sit, and you got to smile for me on that one anyway. Susan Speakman, hi Bill, hope all is well with you and Natasha. It is, thank you for asking. Regarding the appointment of a new Supreme Court justice, would it be a smart idea if Cocaine Mitch and his cohorts simply put whoever the nominee is up for a vote without the committees questioning, etc.? It seems to me, especially after Kavanaugh, that a scorched earth policy might not be such a bad idea at this point, particularly since apparently there are no rules that mandate anything other than the Senate's advice and consent or non-consent. Yes. When Obama's appointment, I've forgotten his name now, but his late in his second term appointment, Marshall something, was blocked or was delayed. Merrick, thank you, Merrick Garland. The argument was on the part of Republicans, look, it's an election year. Let's let the people decide. And that argument made sense to me. And so it makes sense to me now, too. We should wait until after the election's over and let the people decide. And then I saw what they did to Brett Kavanaugh. And after that, I said, no, these are people that call for medical aid. And then when the corpsman arrives, they pop open a hand grenade and they kill 5 of our medics. These people don't deserve honorable treatment. They will take advantage of it. And this is the struggle, is how do you fight monsters without becoming a monster yourself, But no, I completely agree. I think they ram it through, and it looks like they're going to be able to. I think they shove it down their throats. And I think that they ought to come out and say this. I don't think this should be something unspoken. I think it needs to be spoken aloud by every single Republican who votes for this, whoever the nominee is. I think they ought to push that through, get it done before the election, and I think every single Republican ought to stand there together as one and say, we did this now, and we did it this way for Brett Kavanaugh. And for the horrific character assassination that was performed on him, this is Kavanaugh's win, and if they decide to continue to play like this, then we will continue to play hardball. It's amazing to watch Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham become radicals. But that's what the Kavanaugh thing did. They're talking about packing the court. Okay, maybe. Let them try. they tried to they blew the nuclear option on the filibuster rule, and it ended up costing them 3 Supreme Court justices. So let them try. Anything that they can't control, they'll destroy. But in any event, I saw a meme going around. It was a picture of Brett Kavanaugh's wife when he was making his defense of himself, and the pain on her face, just the agony on her face. I say slam it down their throats. Just spike the ball and do a victory dance in the end zone, and then flash a bird to all of the fans on the home team, and then go back and score another touchdown. I am absolutely no. Nancy Pelosi says, well, we may have to impeach Donald Trump again for doing his constitutional duty, not only for you would impeach him for not having an appointee. But let them go ahead. They want to pack the courts, that's fine. They want to add a justice or 2 justices or 3 justices. Last time they tried this, they governed like they would never win an election again. And it turned out that they were wrong. And I think they're going to get whacked. And if they do get whacked, and if the best case scenario happens, we keep the House a supermajority in the Senate and the presidency, if the happy days come as a result of all of these riots and all of this lawlessness and the COVID-19 and all the rest of it, then we will have 2 years. And the 2 years are not 2 years that we should build the wall, or that we should continue to do that. They're not times that we should go for this program or this or that. In that 2-year period, we have to do 2 things. We have to secure the election process in America, which means paper ballots and inked fingers on election day, unless you can prove that you are either out of the country or incapacitated. That has to happen. Has to happen, because if the Democrats are already prepping the battle space for a big Trump win. We did an episode on this called the Red. I forget. But they were basically saying, hey, if Trump wins big on election night, that doesn't mean he won. Red Mirage, it doesn't mean he won. It just means that we haven't counted all the votes yet. So they're already preparing people. They're preparing people for an announcement that Trump has won 50 states and by huge majorities, but Joe Biden is not conceding because the rest of the mail-in ballots have not been counted yet. And then what they'll try to do is they will try to do what they did in Florida, and they will keep and Minnesota. They'll keep discovering boxes of ballots that are all for Biden, and they're going to keep discovering them, and they're going to say, well, we cannot have these people's votes just thrown away. We can't invalidate their votes. First of all, there's nobody voting. They're all fraudulent. But secondly, even if they were real votes, yes, we can. Yes, we can throw them away. Absolutely, we can throw them away. Well, just because they're late doesn't mean that their vote shouldn't count. No, on the contrary, because they're late, their vote shouldn't count. The voting is not an opinion. It is a process. It is a legal process. And if you can't follow this legal process once every 2 years, it's not terribly hard. There's people there to help you. If you can't do that, then yes, your vote is gone, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. Yeah, we saw already that Trump votes are being thrown away. They found, 12 ballots? And that's what they found. God knows how many others are thrown away. But yeah, in a dumpster. From the military, I have to tell you, I am not happy about I am not happy about that, needless to say. But I am happy that they caught it, and I am happy that they caught it now. Because now you can start the counter narrative. Now you can start, and this is where we've gotten. This is where we've gotten. We've gotten to a place now where it's like, who can tell the most convincing story? It's like a screenwriting contest. That's what American governance is now. It's like screenwriting contest. Who's got the most emotional story? Not even believable. Who's turning in the best performance? So, all right. So we found all these. Yeah, fine. Hey, here's what I'm going to close with. I'm sorry I'm not going to take any more questions, but this was something I wanted to get off my chest here, and I haven't had a chance to do it. So I just say this, then I'll call it a night. We let ourselves get into this situation, and I can think of 3 cases in recent history where we should have, as Americans, we should have made a decision that we would go and die on that hill if that's what it took. And here are the 3 cases. The first one was for Torricelli. Torricelli. He's a Democrat. He's running in New Jersey, I want to say. He's embroiled in a scandal just a few days before the election. Yeah, Bork is a different story. Bork is why you need to go nuclear on the courts, but I'm talking about elections. So Torricelli gets caught red-handed in this scandal, and it is well past the legal time, the legal window to change the name on the ballot. Well past. Days and days, weeks past. But the Democrats did it anyway. And we let them do it. They basically said, well, yeah, we know that's, but that's not fair. The people need to have a representative. And so we'll swap the candidate out at the last minute, and we'll put somebody else in there in violation of all the rules. And you'll take it, won't you? And we did. We did. We took it. We should have fought and died on that hill. In 2000, in Florida, they called Florida, they called Florida an Eastern time zone, but the entire Panhandle's in Central time zone. The big brains and the layers of editorial fact-checking at the networks apparently missed that. So a Bush campaign, senior campaign person calls the networks and say, they're still voting in Florida, you morons. So what actually happened in Florida in 2000? Well, Bush won the election by, I want to say 500 votes, something like that, somewhere in that general vicinity. Okay, that's a close election. But the machines that count the votes, because machines count the votes because machines don't have political parties. Electronic machines do, but mechanical vote counting machines, they don't have a party. So what does the Constitution say? What does the law say? The law says that the winner of the state of Florida is determined by the mechanical vote of the votes, and if the vote is within a certain percentage point of closeness, then the challenger can elect to have a recount, to call for a recount, which will be done by the same mechanical system. So Bush won the mechanical count in 2000. Gore called for a recount. Bush won the recount on the mechanical system. And that was it. That should have been the end of it. But no. We found more votes that are just, what about these people? We can't disenfranchise them. I know. Why don't we set up a room and we can hold the paper ballot up and we can see, yes, of course, there's no hole actually punched there in the Chad and so on, but you can see there's like a little dimple. The person wanted to vote for Gore. They just didn't push hard enough, and you're going to charge, and it's like, if you can't push the holes or put the little ink dot in the thing, then you can ask for assistance if you're not strong enough to do that. But if you don't do it, you have a right, you have an obligation to hold your ballot up when you're finished before you go in there and make sure that not only is everything clicked, but you didn't click 2 of them at the same place, because that also invalidates that vote. So nope, none of that. So we went along with it, and we let them stall. And when it was finally determined, when it was all over, they said, oh, well, the Supreme Court selected George Bush. George Bush was never really the president. He was never the legitimate president. The Supreme Court selected him. What the Supreme Court did in Florida was the Supreme Court basically said to the Florida Supreme Court and to the Florida legislature, they said, you cannot continue to count votes until you get Gore ahead. Those votes, the vote count has to be in Washington at this particular date, and if it's not there, then we're coming in. And that's what they did. They didn't say that, they didn't declare George Bush the winner. They said you cannot keep revoting until you get the result you want. And so they spent 4 years making George Bush completely illegitimate. And they maintained that forever. We got Barack Obama, who I think there are serious questions about his eligibility to be president. Serious questions. But there's no denying that he won the election, and he won both of those elections. And so we took it because we follow the rules and we respect the rules of a republic. We were outvoted twice. Both times because we had selected Republican candidates who decided that whatever they were going to do, they were certainly not going to stand up to the first black president, even if he's a communist and even if he's doing his level best to destroy the country. So, all right. We should have fought and died on those hills. We should not have ever allowed. Oh, the third one was obviously Al Franken. Somebody said they showed up, as I recall, when Franken was running for the Senate seat in Minnesota. He lost the election, but they kept finding votes, and as I recall, at one point they found a ballot box with 200 ballots in it, and every single one of the 200 ballots was for Al Franken. And in an election that is so close that it is literally down to 50, 100 votes, a statistician said that the chance of 200 ballots all being for Al Franken in an election that close is 0. There is a number, but that number is so close to 0 that calling it a 1% chance is to insult the number. There's a 0% chance that happened. And we did it. We did it. We took it. We took it. And here we are. Shelley, our operations manager, has a sister-in-law, a big liberal. She's already voted. Aren't you concerned about the results of the debate? Are you at all interested? Nope. 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 We have allowed them to do this, and we allow all of it. And it's time to stop. And if what we've seen in 2020 doesn't do it, then I think if it looks like we lost that election and lost it fairly because enough people voted for Biden, then I think it's time to just start a completely different strategy, totally different strategy. And that strategy is, all right, we've lost half the country, and how are we going to protect the other half? It's no longer a question about winning hearts and minds, or if it comes to that, I think that's it. And I know that the people on the other side are saying the same thing. So anyway, the reason we have an election day is because it's more difficult to be in two places at once that way. Somebody put out a tweet, a conservative put out a tweet not too long ago. I loved it. It said, hey, I'm a Republican, first time voting by mail here. Do I mail all 7 ballots in at once, or do I space them out? It's great. So, strange days, folks. And I hate to cut this short because it's been a long time away, but I'm going to have to. I got to get back and finish these scripts and try and connect people back to the history of this country and show them what they're missing, what they're walking away from. So, in any event, we have a glorious history, and we will also have a glorious future. Whether we share it with people from Oregon or California is something I don't know the answer to yet. But I do know that that this idea of America is not going anywhere, and I think that all of this is the death throes of progressivism, and it's going to get uglier before it gets better. But I think that's what I see. I think it's if the rational people of this country vote for the party that would rather have people burning down their streets and shooting cops in the head, if they continue to vote for that party because they've done it their whole lives, then we're really in trouble. I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. I think they're going to be shocked. I sure hope so. But if Trump does win, and I think he will, the temper tantrum that they're going to have the second time is going to make the temper tantrum that they had the first time look like a cakewalk. And that's, I don't know about you guys. I'm sure you feel the same way I do. Anytime I'm facing something unpleasant, something that's getting worse every day, my attitude to this is always, all right, let's get it over with. Let's just get it over with. I don't want to extend it. If it's if it's going to come to that, if they're going to riot in the streets because they lose an election, then by God, let's get it over with. Let's have it done now. And then we'll see. My marker, by the way, I know the debates are coming up in just a few days. My marker is still on Joe Biden having some last-minute emergency that will not allow him to participate. That's what I think is going to happen. If I had to put that's what I think is going to happen. I've been using Whittle's law quite a lot lately. And if you haven't heard it on the other shows, then here it is. Anytime you see something that just looks so awful, the optics are so awful, you cannot imagine how they possibly could have allowed that to happen. The answer is that if they'd gone with the other choice, the optics would have been worse. So the only thing worse than Joe Biden not debating Donald Trump in terms of how it looks is to have Joe Biden actually debate Donald Trump. That's what I think. Joe Biden's been floated so many softballs. When Donald Trump is gonna mock him, and that's gonna take Biden off script. And I've seen this firsthand. Biden is not only suffering from Alzheimer's, he's suffering from dementia. He's got that same aggressive nastiness, So tell you what, fat and you lying dog-faced pony soldier and all the rest of it. I think that's exactly right. We're seeing in the comment section from Dave Wallman and Nexnor. I think I'm as serious as I can be. I think there's a 50-50 chance that if Trump really gets under his skin, Biden is going to challenge Trump to either a fight or to do push-ups. I really think so. Other people think no. He'll probably, we have our hopes too high that he'll just stick to his scripts and and I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I think when Biden sticks to the scripts and he says things like 200 million people have died of COVID-19, I know he means 200,000. Everybody knows he means 200,000. But Donald Trump's not going to let him get away with that. Donald Trump's not going to let him just float and so we all know him. He's going to say, well, Joe, I don't think you're right about that. 200 million people? 200 million people have died. The Center for Disease Control. That's 2/3 of the country, Joe. You might want to check your math on that one. Well, I mean, obviously, I mean 200,000. Well, Joe, you may obviously mean 200,000, but you said 200 million. And if that's the way you're going to run the Treasury, then we have serious problems that we need to talk about. And I think that will be the end of it. I don't know. I think it's going to be, Flipster64 says he saw their fundraising video pre-recorded. It started with the blunder and that they had all day, and that was their best take. I've seen campaign footage put out stuff that had the exact same thought, where I thought, why didn't you just do that again? Pick, I want a bumper sticker, and I always come up with great ideas, and somebody else should always just go ahead and do them, and at least somebody would make money off of them. I think we should have a bumper sticker that says, Biden will fix him in post, Harris. And we'll see. Anyway, that'll do it for this edition of the Stratosphere Lounge, made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com. My sincere apologies for being AWOL. But nevertheless, hopefully it'll be for a good cause, and things are going to get interesting real fast, real quick. Anyway, thanks again for joining us. And I don't know if we'll be here next week, but I do know we will be back again. And the delivery date for these is rapidly approaching, so I should be back to the olden days in the near future. So anyway, thanks. That'll do it. We'll see you next time on Stratosphere Lounge.